Welcome everyone to the 60th anniversary night of our club. We have four distinguished guests with us tonight. We have Steve Doyle, president of the Tamburro Chess Club from 1974 to 1984. We have Pete Tamburro, club champion and current New Jersey State Chess Federation president. We have Stephen Shoshin, president of the Tamburro Chess Club from 2014 to 2021, and life master and oldest club member, Eugene Salomon. So, here tonight. Pete came all the way from North Jersey, so I really want to thank Pete again for driving from Morristown, correct? So thank you, Pete.
It can be done. You know what's funny? I got to say this. I'm coming down the Parkway. I'm at exit 100, and I call Steve to let him know I'll be there in about 20 minutes. And then he says to me, "Well, I'm at exit 108," and I'm like, I don't understand. I thought it was exit 82. And then he had to explain to me, no, he's behind me in the car. Instead of Parkway. So he drove down from Morristown too.
All right, so I want to begin with some basic questions. We're just going to go down the panel, and I'm going to give everyone about 10-15 minutes of their own as well. The first question I wanted to ask for the board here is, we're going to start with Steve Doyle. How did you first hear about the club?
My brother came home from the military right after Bobby Fischer played in '72. Remember watching that on television on Channel 13, the PBS match Fischer-Spassky. And that May, after that, there was an advertisement in the newspaper that there was going to be a simultaneous exhibition, whatever the hell that was, at the Tamburro Chess Club with the state champion. And it was Edgar McCormick at the time. So I looked up the word simultaneous and looked up the word exhibition and tried to figure out what it meant. So it made no sense to a chess player, but he was going to take on all comers at the chess club. So I came down, the first person I met was Pete Tamburro. At the event, he was the club secretary treasurer at the time. So that's how I came to the club for the first time. We played in an exhibition. He played 20 or 30 of us at the same time.
Did you win that exhibition?
I did not. I lost terribly. But it ignited a lifetime passion for chess. And I've been coming here and climbing the steps. We used to climb the steps, now we've been down the steps. So it was right here in this building in 1973 before it got torn down. This is the second building to stand on this property.
So thank you very much, Steve. I guess, Pete,
Sure.
how did you first hear about the club here? You were here before Steve.
I played Bob Donaldson in a game. I think it might have been the team championship in '73. Or it might have been before that, because I played Bob early on in some kind of tournament. I can't remember for sure. But he says, I told him I lived in Island Heights at that time. And he said, you know, we have a club in Tom's River. So I showed up. That simple.
That's simple.
Yeah.
Bob was the former first president of the chess club.
Yeah.
Right. So how did you end up then getting into the administrative position here, Pete? How did you end up as a secretary treasurer when Doyle came?
I'm still trying to figure out how I ended up being president of New Jersey Chess Federation. You know, I avoided that for 50 years. I don't know. They just, you know, we didn't have any money, so the treasurer's job wasn't really very hard. And we never had any meetings, so the secretary's job wasn't very hard. I think they just needed somebody to fill the position.
Thank you very much. All right, now Steve Shoshin, how did you first find out about the Tamburro Chess
Well,
Club?
I can't remember when I was first interested in chess. I even went so far as to go to a hypnotist to see if he could remember when I first played or how I learned. No clue. But I found out that there was a club here, and I showed up on October 31st, 2013, and I was the only person in attendance. There was nobody else here, no president, no players. And I stuck around for about an hour, and somebody finally showed up. And it was his first night ever at the chess club. So we played each other, and he decimated me. But that's how I found out about the club.
And then at the time, I know Bob Garrison was acting president.
He was running the club, yes.
Is there anything you can add? How did your first interaction go in terms of you getting onto the board and all of that?
What happened was I made the mistake of asking Bob if he needed any help. And he said yes, so he took me to the bank because I had written a check for my membership fee, and we went to the bank, and he signed me on as a person who could cash checks for the club or whatever, and it took him about 5 seconds to make the deposit of my check. And after that, it was all downhill for me.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. Eugene, same question to you, my friend. How did you first hear about the Toms River Chess Club?
I originally knew about the Toms River Chess Club when in the 70s, when I was a member of the Westfield Chess Club. And we had, at that time, I met some of these panelists, Pete and Steve, who used to go to the chess club in Westfield once in a while. As a matter of fact, Steve is very proud that his team tied against the super team of Westfield in those days. The first board of Toms River at that time was this gentleman here, Wayne Conover, a FIDE master and international master in correspondence chess, who beat Steve Stoico in 1975, tying the match, which was
15
unbelievable.
points.
So I knew about Toms River, but I was in and out of chess many times. I was at one time in the early 40s, before anybody here was born. I was a child prodigy in my hometown in Spain. Then, by circumstances of life, I have to leave and went to Cuba, and by circumstances of life from Cuba came here. In the process, I was out of chess for 16 years, until 1968, which already with a family and already successful in business, I decided, well, let me go again. And without playing for 16 years, I played and was the finalist in the New Jersey Open and ended up with a master rating. I have been in Spain, I have played in international competitions. In Cuba, I was selected for the Olympic team. So I had a history, but I have been without playing 16 years. So after that, I started playing again here in the States in the 70s, and only sporadically, one tournament every 3 months or so. And all of a sudden, I landed a job in Florida, and after I retired at age 65, I said, gee, let me go back to chess. And in 1994, I retired at age 65 and came back from Florida to New Jersey, to the Toms River area, and that was my first contact with the Toms River Chess Club in 1994.
30 years after the founding. But you've been in chess here since this
Well, in
almost
chess, I have
No, I mean in terms of New Jersey chess, you've been in the scene though since the 70s with Westfield.
in New Jersey. I have been very active since 1968. 80 years of chess.
You could write a new book, and that could be the title.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to now go back and to put the attention back on Mr. Doyle here. What was your favorite memory from the club, either during your presidency, after your presidency?
You know, the older days, Bob Donaldson put an ad in the newspaper to try and start the club. They started meeting at Toms River South on the mechanical boards. You know, the boards were slanted, so it was hard to play chess. Then they moved to a furniture shop over on Main Street that caught on fire. And then they moved to the town hall. And the town hall used to be a 2-story structure. The police station was over here in the corner, so we'd get the key, we'd open up, and the club was basically unlimited hours. We would go to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning some nights, some mornings till 6 a.m. It was a Friday night we used to meet, so we had pretty much open hours. And then when I became president, they gave me the key. So I actually had my own keys, so those same hours continued for a long time. There were a couple of members, though, that stand out, and I wanted to share that with you. There's always members that have unique personalities. But one of them was named Jamie Soto, and some of you may remember him. He had gold teeth, a whole mouth of gold teeth. You don't see a lot of gold teeth today. But when one of my first tournaments, one of the players complained that when he smiled, he would sit there with his mouth open and he would smile. The light would hit the gold teeth, and it was distracting. And I said, and I'm 14 years old and I'm directing a tournament, and it's not easy to interact with adults. So I had to go with them. Please keep your mouth shut. You're annoying the player. But that's a true story. Then we had another guy, Irving Glenn, who used to wear sunglasses. And I get it. You're out and you have prescriptions. You have, script for sunglasses, their prescription, and you wear them out. Sometimes it gets dark. He would come to the club with the prescription on, and it would get dark, and he's sitting there playing in the sunglasses. Well, he's playing in a tournament, and the same thing. My opponent's wearing sunglasses. There's no sun here. The lights are on. He's not allowed to do that. I said, well, and I'm looking through the rule book, and I said, there's nothing that says he can't wear sunglasses. Again, 13, 14 years old, directing tournaments. Imagine what it's like when you're being challenged by an adult on a rule. He said, no, it's in the rule book. You can't wear sunglasses. Of course, it's not in the rule book. But we had some interesting members. We had another guy, Robert T. Durkin, who was the last person who created a move. His move was knight to queen, rook 3. Okay, that was the first move. It's called the Durkin attack. It's in the opening books. Everybody's got an opening. That was his, knight to queen, rook 3. Terrible move, but he actually beat people with that. He used to sit on a suitcase. He would come to the club and he would sit on a suitcase, a giant suitcase. So he's looking down like a bird, okay, at his prey. Well, we had another member who decided he was going to do the same thing, Frank Marachi. So the next meeting, he started to play in the tournaments, and he'd stack the chairs. We used to have stackable chairs in those days. And he would have 3 chairs, and he'd sit on top of it. And I'm like, come on, you can't stack the chairs. Where does it say you can't stack the chairs in the rule book? So there's just a couple of the personalities over the years. And there's other guys that you had to deal with here, but they were fun times. But the best times for me were the exhibitions. I have an obsessive compulsive personality, extreme OCD, and I'm a type A driven person. That's why I was successful in life. I was chief operating officer of a Fortune 5 company, CFO of a major insurance carrier. Now I'm retired. Now I'm just mayor of my town. But I still do things. But here, when I was president here, we had tons of members, but we had a parade of grandmasters, and I got sponsorship for most of them. In fact, 42 years ago in this room, Tigran Petrosian was in this room and gave an exhibition, almost to the day. It was right around now. It was in March.
I was there.
You were there. I mean, and just picture Petrosian. You see pictures of these people, and they look small because they're on, in a magazine, and that's all we ever knew.
Yeah.
Petrosian was actually very tall and very imposing, and he had a huge nose. And the nose was prominent on his face. Tall man, wearing a suit. He comes to my first impression, I still have it. I came to the hotel, he got here, I don't remember how he got here, I didn't have to pick him up. He came to the Toms River, he was at a hotel. I went to the hotel room, knocked on the door to pick him up, to take him out for the afternoon for some food. And this man comes to the door with a beautiful suit, giant, I'm a fairly average to short guy, and he's well over 6 feet. Big nose, broad face, broad body, and I'm like, wow, this is Tigran Petrosian. And I still remember that to this day. And what he wanted to do was go shopping for 2 things, blue jeans and John Wayne movies. And I took him shopping for blue jeans and John Wayne movies, and he bought like 20 pairs of blue jeans, because they were really hot in Russia at the time, and John Wayne movies. And we went all over Ocean County. It's not easy to find. Even then, it wasn't easy to find anything in Ocean County. But we managed to find some John Wayne movies up in Bricktown so he could take back. But that's a prominent memory, and he was here in this room. The only world champion to ever be physically here in this building. Most of the others, we had sponsorship from the college. At the college, yeah. We never had any of the world champions here at our facilities. We had Mikhail Tal, fantastic story, and I'll tell that when it's my time to tell that story. Spassky. We had Korshnoy, who was a challenger. Of course, we had Caruana not that many years ago, what I'll call Ocean County College 2. We had Nakamura. Steve can tell those. We had Karpov here. We had Bronstein came here to the club. So over the years, we've really had a parade. But the parade was because I was obsessed. I wanted to get everybody here. So we basically had Walter Brown, Reshevsky, Gingerashvili, Bisgeyer, Lombardi. We had a parade of all the U.S. Grandmasters at the time, and as many world champions as we could get. And we got just about all of them here at one time or another. And that was pretty cool. Yeah, right. And so, in Botvinnik's only exhibition ever in the United States was here at Tom's River, which there was an article in Chess Life that mentioned that again. And then we got the old guys too. I got Edward Lasker to come out of retirement. Edward Lasker, I mean, he played Pillsbury. Yeah, Edward Lasker. Some of you old timers remember Edward Lasker. And Reuben Fine. Reuben Fine, when I called Reuben Fine, he said, nobody's called me in 30 years. You're the first person from the chess world that's ever called me. And then I arranged a reunion between Botvinnik, Reuben Fine, and Reshevsky in New York shortly thereafter. So they all three got together. So it was, but those years were incredible for everybody that was in the club at that time. There's a handful of you still around, but we had quite a parade, and that parade in and of itself. But we also focused on chess, and I had some good games in those. I beat Koval. I played Bobby Miller, who was a state champion, and I had a winning game, and I drew him, and I had a good game against Ed not too long ago. I could really play pretty wild chess in those days. I can't play like that much anymore, but those were good, and I enjoyed those. I was just over 1,800 at my peak, but they didn't have floors in those days, so my floor, I'm now down in the 1,400s. I'm so bad. But I should only be 1,600s if they put the peak in when I was 1,800. So, but that's okay. But those were good years, and it helped me. Starting so young, it helped me in my life to become successful. I believe, the early leadership that I had here at the club, that and my school, I started in Island Heights Elementary School by my neighbor here, Pete, didn't know him then, but, and my last school was Yale. So I did okay in life and had a good life, and always, chess has always been a part of it. So, and this club has been very special.
Going on, I mean, I don't even know how you top that. We'll go to Pete now, and I'll ask him a similar question of what was your favorite memories here, and how did your time here at Tom's River, affect the rest of your chess career?
Well, I would have to say that my favorite Tom's River Chess Club experience was the match with Westfield. And Wayne Conover and I were talking about it before the meeting, and he said, the only reason we tied that match is because he beat Stoico 4-1. And I said, gee, I thought the reason we tied was because I beat Bozar on my board. so with the King's Gambit, no less. And but the fact of the matter was that Westfield thought they were just going to roll over us. I mean, you had to be back there, because I was actually a member of the Westfield Chess Club then, because I had moved up north to get a job. That'll work. And they said, well, Pete, you can play for Tom's River. Oh, okay. Because it was my club just a year ago. And so we tied them. They were not happy. And so that would be a favorite memory. But another favorite memory is that we used to just play a lot of chess, and we were very friendly, and nobody got upset. And then, of course, Rich Russo pulling out that metal board. Do you still have that here?
No, it's gone.
It's gone? A metal board with magnetic pieces. I mean, he made it all by himself. No little slot thing that you can order from USCF. He made the darn thing, and I thought that was pretty cool. And then something else happened. Glenn Peterson came down here to visit me, and I was in grad school while I was living here, and he said, I have an idea to start a chess newspaper. And okay, I'm in. So the two of us founded the Atlantic Chess News. And that's, like I like to tell people, that's where we literally did cut and paste. You know, a lot of young people use the phrase cut and paste, but you don't understand. We used to type up the copy on regular stuff and then hand it to the typesetter, who would then type it on strips. And then we would take the strips and go to the storyboards and oh no, excuse me, we would put it through the waxing machine. You put wax on the back, then we go to the storyboards, and then we would put it on, let's say, the left-hand column, okay? And, you know, oh, this is perfect, the right-hand column. We would go down the right-hand column, and you can see here it says, please turn to page 6. Well, what we had to do was cut the column right there, and then take that was left over, go to page 6, and stick it on page 6. and then we had to, you know, just take them all over the board until we put a newspaper together. And it would take hours. You know, it wasn't like a click, 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 and you're done. And so what happened is that I started playing a lot of chess, really, for the first time in my life. And it was remarkable because we were playing chess clubs, and from Tom's River, we were playing chess clubs from all over New Jersey, you know, and especially in South Jersey, you know, like Woodbury or, you know, whoever, Ventnor, you know, wherever we could find chess clubs. We didn't even have a league. We just found clubs and said, you want to play? And then we would play. And it was a lot of fun, and we had a great team, and the people were creative. Bob Lincoln, Bob Coughlin, you know, people like that were really brilliant. And I got a kick out of that. And what I did was I brought the Atlantic Chess Newses from 73 to 75, and then we skipped to the 80s and 90s. And the reason I did that, because I wanted to talk to you and say, you know, look through here and look at the Tom's River Chess Club history in Atlantic Chess News. You know, because we covered every club we could. And if there was a club championship, we would try and put it in. You know, if there was a match, we put it in. Tom's River High School, oh my God, they beat everybody in sight for years. The Tom's River high school chess players were phenomenal. And they were terrific. The Debrakis, Thad and was it Joanne Debraki, I think that was her first name. And they were very good. And then Durkin, as Steve pointed out, started to write for Atlantic Chess News, and he wrote about how women couldn't play chess. You know, wasn't in their, you know, whole thing. Well, Joanne read that.
They had the brains the size of a walnut.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's what he said.
Oh, yeah. So Joanne wrote a letter to the editor for the Ages, just ripped him up and down. You have to remember, she was this frail, quiet little girl, you know, just very sweet, the whole business like that. And she went after him like a barracuda, and it was hilarious, and that certainly is fun for the Tom's River part of it. But you know, just a lot of good memories along those lines. I don't have, you know, I was only down here for almost 2 years, but it was great.
How did you distribute your newspaper? Subscription only?
Yeah, and we mailed it. And boy, was that fun. Because we had to, you know, we eventually got, you know, we had to type, you know, for the labels and the whole business like that. Then we had to go to the post office, get a postal permit, and what I would do is I would sell the newspaper anywhere to anybody, you know, that would buy it. And the newspaper itself, as I have come to learn, you guys are familiar with the book that Joel Benjamin did on the World Opens? Well, boy, were they embarrassed when they found out that I covered the first, we covered the first 3 World Opens in Atlantic Chess News, and we had a ton of games they didn't have. So, you know, it became valuable. But what we did early on was we tried to hook up with the New Jersey Chess Federation. In other words, if you join the New Jersey Chess Federation, like this young man did back then, you would get the subscription to Atlantic Chess News. And then we would get a part of the, you know, the dues to help pay for the newspaper, which later got very interesting when our editorial policy disagreed with the president of the State Chess Federation. And then all hell broke loose up in Westfield. But it was a rollicking good time. It really was. So.
I was always on your side. I was always on your side.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciated that. So, you know, I mean, you know, this is just a great place, great people, very friendly. I always liked this area because people were friendly. You know, I had breakfast at the diner, and then my longtime friend in Island Heights took me out to dinner in Lavalette, and all I could see was all these people that were part of the restaurants. Everybody was friendly. It's remarkably friendly, and I miss it. It's a nice atmosphere. Never take it for granted, you know. And that was the way the club was. You know, there weren't any. I don't remember any bad persons. You know, people that you dreaded having to show up at the club. You know, it was always a lot of fun and very relaxed. Although when you played for a club championship, you were serious as all around. So that's it.
Do you think that atmosphere here at Toms River, that's why Toms River Chess Club is still here today, where Ventnor Chess Club is kind of fell off, and a couple of the other more prominent clubs have fell off?
Well, chess clubs continue to exist for two reasons. The people that are a part of it stay a part of it for a long time and encourage others. The other reason is that you get people like this that organize and popularize the club. If you don't have leaders that go out there and promote and ask special things of government organizations or whatever, none of that happens, because chess players will, you know, maybe, you know, drift off and find someplace else. So you need that combination of people that want to bring others in. You know, you should each try and bring somebody in, and as an individual, and then, you know, rely on the people that lead the place. We need leaders, and we need assistants, co-leaders, you know, to keep the club vibrant. You know, that's why it stays, you know, for a long time.
Thank you. Speaking of leaders, let's go to our last leader here, Steve Shoshin. Your history is more recent history, where a lot of people are going to remember. But I want to know what, in the early time when you were here, the early teens, a lot of us weren't here at that time, 2013, 2014, 2015. What were your favorite memories from then? What were your favorite, that time period when you just started coming to the club?
Well, like you say, I'm relatively new to the organization, and I don't have the base of memories that these other guys have. But I would say it was just the continuance of the club, being able to get it going again. It was kind of on the decline when I first came.
Did a fabulous job.
And people just started coming out and playing chess again. So it just in general, seeing the success of the club was my favorite memory about that time.
Yeah, because if you don't revive it, what happens?
You were asking.
Yeah.
And you got the Chess City of the Year prize from USCF.
Chess Club of the Year.
That's a tremendous accomplishment.
2021.
Do you remember when we started coffee and donuts?
Yes. Yeah, that was part of the club that actually Ed Knowles instituted. He started bringing coffee in a container from the Dunkin' Donuts across the way and a couple of dozen donuts. And I said, that's not right. He shouldn't be doing this all by himself. So we started taking up a collection, bought a couple of coffee pots, and started bringing in snacks and coffee and donuts. And it's been like that every week since.
Now look at our specs.
Yeah, now you got a big snack.
Now we got cakes.
Yeah, Pop-Tarts.
Thank you very much. And let's go to Eugene. Since you've been in and out of the club since '94, In that time period, you've hosted a couple simul's. Do any of those games from those simul's, or were there any that stood out to you? Is there any, in your time period here, was there any other major event that sticks out to you as a life master versus just a member? Anything like that?
My activity here in this club really was in the teams. After Steve was president, I show up coming back from Spain where they had interviewed me and make a big deal out of chess history. And I came back and met Steve here, and he welcomed me with open arms, and I volunteered to give lectures and simultaneous. And we organized a series of chess lectures. Then all of a sudden, on my 90th birthday, I was having a lecture here. This is 5 years ago. And they surprised me with a birthday celebration. And Steve Doyle was the speaker introducing me. And he made the remark that I want you fellows to know that he is not the oldest lecturer here, because I had Ed Lasker giving a conference here at age 92. So that was when I accepted the challenge. And a few months ago, I gave a lecture here at age 95 to break the record. In those days, the only time I played for this team of Tom's River, I had as a partner our friend Ed Knowles, Steve Shoshin and Steve Doyle agree with me that for the 50th team tournament anniversary, it was all right to enter a team that I was the captain at age 91, my last tournament of chess. And we went, two of the old friends and remarkable people from the Westfield Chess Club, Dr. Richard Lewis and FIDE Master Mark Pinto, and two members from here, Ed Knowles and Greg Coates, and myself as captain. And it was crazy to play at age 95, so I promised my family and my friends that I wouldn't lose more than 3 games. And it was easy, because I have a substitute playing, so I play only three games. Surprisingly enough, I didn't lose any. I made 2 draws and won 1 game. As a consequence of that, I wrote an article, because at age 89 I have become a writer. I am now writing all over the place. So I wrote an article which is the 50th anniversary, because in those days, before COVID, we were supposed to use that as the starting point for this conference. I'm very grateful that Nick had picked up the ball and don't let the thing, because after COVID the whole thing collapsed. I am not going to talk about that wonderful experience because it would take too long. What I have done is bring this copy for Nick so that you can distribute to any member who is interested. It's the whole story of that team tournament, of one team from Tom's River Chess Club. I won the prize to the oldest player at age 91. And it is an interesting story, so I will leave it with you, Nick.
Thank you.
But the other remarkable time was that besides the names of Petrosian, Tal, Korchnoi, and Botvinnik is, I believe, the Eastern River, I believe that thanks to Steve, is the only club in America who had the presence of Botvinnik. Well, besides those guys, this little guy here, because of giving a lot of conferences and simultaneous, etc., the club honored me putting my name together with Steve Doyle and with all those big guys in the Toms River Hall of Fame, Toms River Club, which I appreciate very much. It was one of the honors of my chess life. And I had, although I haven't been able to come frequently in the last couple of years, but I have very fond memories of this club. And honestly, this has been an exceptional experience for me in my last years on chess.
We're so glad to have you here, Eugene, and so glad that you can come here and give us your wisdom and your time and your experiences here at this club.
Thank you.
So I want to now kind of make the questions a little more personalized. Now I know Steve Doyle has a really good story that he wants
Oh,
to share.
okay. So I thought I would just continue part 2 of the history, because I have a story there.
Go ahead.
So when they tore down this building, before they built this current structure, we had to relocate. So I lobbied all the politicians. It's easy to lobby politicians, you just have to be nice to them. So we moved out to Riverwood Park, which was another township building, which was out in the northern part of the township. It was a huge building, and our club was well over 200 members at that time, so we needed the room. Does everybody remember Riverwood Park? I don't know, how many remember Riverwood Park? Yes, so we were out there, and it was the old Ku Klux Klan building that the town had actually acquired. But back in the 20s and 30s, that's what it was. It was historically in Dover Township, the Ku Klux Klan building. And if you look at the architecture, it has, still to this day, it has some of the lines that look like,
You thought it was a white cupola.
But the Klan that we know today isn't the Klan that existed back then. They had a different purpose, especially in the North. They were actually more charitable. But anyway, we won't get into the Klan structure, because now you know, it's okay. But interesting story about that building. Those of you that remember the Amityville Horror, everybody remember the movie, the Amityville Horror? Well, that was filmed in Toms River. And the wedding scene was at that building. So they had the wedding scene in the movie that was there. They filmed it, and all the stars were at it. Well, I'm a kid, 19 years old. And I said, I have the keys to the building. I'm going to go to the wedding. So I did. So I went to the wedding, and I dressed nice. And they invited me to be an extra at the wedding. I'm in the building. They said, you want to sit down? You get a free lunch. I said, never say no to a lunch. So, but I got to meet. Brolin was one of the stars, of the movie. I got to talk to him and some of the others and the kids that were in the movie. And I got to sit and have lunch. So you can see me in one scene in the background. I had a leisure suit on. Remember those wonderful things that we had in the 70s that all disappeared magically in 1980? But I had a leisure suit on. You can kind of see me in the distance. I had a little scruffy beard in those days. So coming to the chess club can sometimes make you a movie star. But I have one favorite story about Mikhail Tal, which I'm going to tell you. So when I picked up Tal to come to the club, after the event, he wanted to go to Atlantic City because Tal was a big gambler. So off to Atlantic City we went, but before we went, I had to clear him of cash that he had in every pocket. He was staying at the Holiday Inn, which is now the Days Inn on Route 37. It had just opened. In those days, they had safe deposit boxes. So he had about $50,000 in $100 bills, shoved in every piles of dollars like this in every pocket. And we're taking it all out, and we're putting it in the safe deposit box because I didn't want him to be able to go. He just won a big tournament in Canada. It was a blitz tournament with a big first prize, cash. I said, you can take $500. That's all I would let him take to Atlantic City. So we unload the money at the front desk, we lock up the thing and head down to Atlantic City. So we go into the casino. I don't remember which casino we went to. He puts down the $500 on black. Okay, boom, $500 on black. So we're sitting there and black wins. And now it's 1,000, and then it's 2, because Blackie had a run. It's 2, then it's 4, then it's 8, now we're over the table limit, then it's $16,000, and he has 1, and he's up to 16. Now it's 32, he wins again on black. He slides it to red. It's $64,000, he wins again. Now we've got a crowd. He's got $64,000 in front of him. And I said, come on, we gotta go. You're doing great, you've doubled your money. No, one more. Boom, 0 comes out, off it went. I'm like, oh my God, he lost everything. But he had fun. Then, now it's late, he had the exhibition, it's late, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I had to work, I work full time, and I'm exhausted. I'm only 25, 26 years old, but, I'd been up since 6 o'clock that morning working, and, so I said, okay, listen, we pull over on the parkway. I have to sleep for 10 minutes. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. I have to get him back to Tom's River to get the money out of the safe deposit box and get him on a flight, because his time was up and he had to go someplace else. So I said, I've just got to pull over for 10 minutes and sleep on the side of it. So we pull over on the side of the parkway, and I'm sleeping. And, I got a little 15-minute cat nap, which is all I needed in those days to kind of recharge. And I kind of wake up, and I'm a little groggy, and there's Tal with these big bug eyes that he had, staring, smoking a cigarette, because he was a constant smoker, and the window's open, and you just see him, and I'm like, here I am with a world champion, one of the greatest of all time, smoking in my car, probably giving me, emphysema, but nonetheless, I'm like, this is incredible. And then I got him up to Newark. He wanted to have a drink and a cocktail, so I had to sit and have a cocktail. We had gotten the money, and then I got him on the plane, and off he went. But that was an incredible experience for me. And then just seeing all that money and watching the house, like, what the hell is going on? This guy's killing us. Got $64,000 in front of him. Interesting number to have, though, 64, right? So that was the, But now that story's been published in books all over about Tal, but it's my story, and I was there. Nobody else was except me. So that's a couple of stories. But I have one of those for all of the, like when we had Korchnoi, Reagan had just been, the attempted assassination had just occurred on Ronald Reagan. And he made a comment at that exhibition at the college. We had hundreds of people there, including the press. That the Reds, i.e. Russia, Reds linked to Hinckley. And that was the headline, and the AP picked it up, and it was in 50 newspapers all around the country that, Refusnik, Viktor Korchnoi, said that Russia was involved in the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan. And it was only a few weeks before that had occurred. He was still in the hospital. So that was an incredible headline. And that caused more calls and, more publicity, all as a result of that exhibition. But we got a lot of play out of those exhibitions.
I was there for the Korchnoi because I played him,
Right.
getting a job. But when he walked in, he immediately went up to the microphone and started talking all politics.
Right, that's right.
And somebody had to cut him off.
Right, yes, that's right.
I drew him.
Yeah, see, here we go. And of course, then when we had Spassky, talk about an elegant gentleman. We had we had a woman that used to make beautiful cakes for us. So you have food, we used to have cakes when I was president. And you remember, I had all those nice cakes. We always had a chessboard and a chess position on it. And it was a big deal with chocolate chess pieces. And Spassky, we had the position from Russia with love. And he walks in, he says, oh, queen is on the wrong square, it should be here, and he moves it. And then he takes the queen and eats it. But that was Spassky. What a great guy he was. So, okay, that's it for those couple of stories you want to get to.
Yeah, no, maybe we should step it up and have queen, movable chess cakes,
There you go.
So I guess my next question's for Pete. You were a club champion in the 70s or 73?
72, 3, yeah, somewhere in there, 73, I guess.
Is there any memorable games you have from then, or was there any, who do you remember the club dynamics? Who was playing back then?
Oh, yeah, I have it reported here in the Atlantic Chess News,
Look
as
at
a
that.
matter of fact. It was a closed event. Let me see. I think it's in this one. Or maybe not. Oh, here it is, yeah. Here we go. It was me, Doug Aiken, Bob Coughlin, Kenny Ivins, and Bob Donaldson. And that was the 5 of us. And I came in at 6'2", Aiken and Coghlan were 5.5, and it was closely contested, to say the least. And yeah, we had a, you know, we had an interesting group. Like we were opponents, but we were friends. You know, I played Larry Epstein in a match when you had rated matches. And he would come over to my house in Island Heights. It wasn't my house, but the house I was in. And we played a match there. You know, we used one of the bedrooms that didn't have anything in it and put a little bridge table up and some chairs. And we went, you know, and that was kind of cool. And I always felt good that I won 4.5, 1.5, and he later became club champion. So I always felt, man, I'm still the club champion. You know? But what was interesting was, whether it was Larry or Bob or the other Bob, we used to talk an awful lot about opening theory. Like everybody goes on their computer today. You know, when you research opening theory or opening systems or whatever, we used to talk to each other about what we were playing and whether it was good and analyze. And if you look at chess today, everybody leaves. You know, how many games have you gone over with somebody? Especially if they're kids, they just get up and they head for their chess coach or their chess base or whatever. And I became, because of the Toms River experience, you know, I became like a little openings wonk, and I started writing an openings column in Atlantic Chess News. And if you don't think that leads somewhere, you've seen my books, Openings for Amateurs, Openings for Amateurs Next Step, and the 3rd volume is coming out this spring. I've been the openings columnist for British Chess Magazine for 10 years, okay? And I don't write about openings at all for American Chess Magazine, but I go around and find people that can write about them, that are far more talented than I am. And I look at all this and I say, you know, none of this happens without Glenn, without the Toms River Chess Club, and the way people were back then. You know, it was a very friendly atmosphere, and people always, I remember, you know, talking about Steve Stoico. He would come in with like a notebook. I remember this. He doesn't even remember it, but I remember it. He came with a notebook this thick, okay? And back then we didn't have all the printout stuff, you know, anything like that. So he designed his own little analysis system, and he had discovered the Rossolimo attack against the Sicilian, you know, with bishop to b5. And the knight on c6, or, you know, with d6 or whatever. But I remember with the knight on c6, he said, well, if black plays e6, look what I've analyzed. You take the knight, bust up the pawns. And he spent hours on this stuff. And he would share it with me. You know, like, I thought that was great. You know, and people would do stuff like that. And then he came up to me once and said, yeah, you wrote something about the queen takes d4 Sicilian. I said, yeah, and you mentioned British Chess Magazine. Do you have that article from back in the 70s? I said, oh yeah. So I photocopied and gave it to him, and he went out and beat Jim West with it. And it was a lot of fun. We had like little study groups. One of the things that I think you guys can do, you know, form a study group. You know, you get all these openings, or middle game positions, or rook endgame positions, or whatever. You know, form study groups and talk about them. You know, exchange ideas. You know, I found that to be the most important thing that happened in my chess development, because I would go over to Edgar McCormick's house, and Oris Popovich would be there, and Ed Allen, and Norm Hertland, Ralph Hertland, and you know, the 5 of us. I mean, I wasn't a master, but they had me at the table, and every now and then, you know,
Pearl.
yeah, you know, if I saw a mate in 5, they didn't. They, oh, good job. And one time I drew with when I was down here, I drew with Dubek in the South Jersey Open championship, and I had him. He was beat, but I had like 5 minutes left, and he had 3. So, you know, he had offered me a draw. I refused it, but I couldn't see it all the way to the end. By that time, I had 5 minutes left, so, you know, I offered him a draw. He took it, you know, and the funny part of that story is Durkin had complained about the pairing because he felt that Dubek was playing a potzer like me, and whereas he had to play an expert, and it wasn't fair. So anyhow, I drew with Dubek, and then Durkin got Dubek in the last round and got crushed. And then I have a letter from Robert Durkin. Don't think because you finished ahead of me in the South Jersey Open that you're better than I am.
Holy cow.
You see, that's why I wasn't part of the Ventnor Club. So, but I look back on what has happened to me with chess, and it all germinated down here. And, you know, so I owe it to people wanting to do things with other people. So I think that's a great lesson for them.
And I think that's part of the club spirit still to this day. We sit here and we play games with each other, we laugh, we talk, and every week is an intense tournament or something. It's a lot of casual chess and it's a lot of learning from each other here at the club.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of the Tamburro Chess Club. It's community, you know.
Well, just to jump in, to build on germination, think about some of the other people that have, you know, crossed through here. Carol Jarecki, she would bring her son, and she became one of the top arbiters in the world. And, you know, and ran, you know, world championship matches and other things. Frank Camerata started the House of Staunton and developed some of the best chess sets that are sold worldwide today. And Frank was here back in the day. So we had a lot of people that really got their love of chess from this group here. Bob Lincoln became one of the top problemists in the country, mating 2s, mating 3s, you know, and continued doing that after that time. So, you know, just to build on Pete, there's some interesting people, you know, that really, you know, I became president of the Chess Federation and vice president of the World Chess Federation, you know, all because of here, and still continue to this day.
Just so that you're aware, you know, Frank and I, we played on one of the early teams that went to Atlantic City. We played the team tournament down in Atlantic City.
Oh, okay.
Frank was in the board 1, I was board 2.
Yes, okay.
We did okay.
Did okay.
It's amazing the personalities that come out of here in terms of just people, in terms of chess experience. You have people who are complete beginners coming here and going into, I believe, wasn't Joel Benjamin one of the...
Joel Benjamin was 13 when he came here.
You know.
He played a simultaneous. He was young then. He was one of the youngest master, I guess.
Just to amplify on what was said before, asking about a certain opening, he says, if you want to learn an opening, play that opening only for a whole year. And that's the best way to learn, and that's true. Because you play all those games, it doesn't matter whether it's a rated game or an offhand game, just keep playing the same opening, and that's how you learn it.
Yeah, thank you. I think let's go on to Steve here. You had a couple of really amazing chess players here, but you had Fabiano Caruana. That was under your presidency.
Yes.
And you had Irina Kruch.
Irina Kruch, who was a real woman grandmaster, not a women's grandmaster, a regular grandmaster.
And you had Gadakamsky, right?
Gadakamsky. We had the IM international master, Danny Kopek. We had, and Gene gave us a simul.
And Nakamura. Yeah,
Nakamura was just before I came.
And could you tell us more about, you know, the Fabiano Caruana, considering that's one of the biggest names in chess, and that's outside
He was
of
world number 2 at the time.
You know, how did that go down? Can you tell us more about that?
Steve Doyle let me know that he was in contact and he would be able to arrange a simul. And I contacted the people at Ocean County College to see if we could perform it there, because they got rid of their old room that they had done the simuls in and had a new student center. So got there real early, set up, and had 35 boards, and he lost actually one game to Sean Finn.
Wow. And Irina Kruch, how did that go down? Same situation?
Same thing. Good thing he has that A-type personality. And contacts in the whole chess world.
So thank you, Steve Doyle, for acting behind the scenes still today.
Steve did all the work for us.
Eugene, you were saying you've been giving lectures in Spain and whatnot, and you've been promoting Tamburro Chess Club outside of just the United States. Could you elaborate more into that?
Yeah, out of the blue sky, I became kind of an ambassador of the Toms River Chess Club in Spain because my articles, and I have a column on chess in a website in Spain, and because my books and my writings, etc. Just last week I was in Spain because they are making a film documentary about child prodigy Grandmaster Arturo Pomar, who was a US Open champion. He was kind of the Fisher of the US in Spain in the 40s. I'm probably the only one around who used to play with him in those days. So they flew me to Spain to participate in the filming and the interviews, etc. And it was a very interesting experience because at the same time, an organization connected with the World Health Organization, the Spanish chapter, was holding a meeting in the same town, and they invited me to talk about the theme. The World Health Organization of Spain is conducting a 10-year program about mental activity and aging healthy. So there was a big symposium on that at the City Hall place, and they invited me as a guest speaker, as a life master from chess and bridge, both in the US. And I presented, developed this theme about the benefits of chess, bridge, and any other mental activity in good health in general. I think that chess has not been advertised enough as something that helps you tremendously in business, as Steve said, and we both had successful careers in business, and chess helps you to plan, to analyze, to have patience, and to have objectives. All these same themes of business and life in general is contained in chess. I have played against 4 world champions. I have played against 4 child prodigies. I have played against 5 US Open champions. And surprisingly enough, I have good results against all of them. I lost to world champion Alec Kine in 1944, but beat world champion of 12-year-old Gabriel Sarkisian, Grandmaster, in Linares 1998. And recently, this year, Josh Edwards became world champion in correspondence chess. I beat him over the board. And at one time, Bell Laboratories was the world champion in computer. I beat Bell Laboratories. So I have a history with world champions. You know, they say that after age 90 you can brag without a problem. It's no longer a sin. Then in child prodigies, I played against Pomar when he was 11 years old in 42 or 43. I played 20 years later against Joel Benjamin. I'm sorry, and I told Joel recently, I remember he's crying over the game because he thought he had a win and I was able to draw it. Then I played against Sarkisian when he was world champion at age 12. And then the most interesting thing, I play against Reshevsky when he was a very old man. He was selling insurance policies and came to my home, and he beat the hell out of me before. And then I play against this guy, and I played 5 times. One time he won, the other 4 were draws.
I guess my favorite moment from being president was really just when it all came together and we had the first holiday party, and it was the first time that I myself as a leader could see, as a leader of an organization, could see success and see hard work paying off and see people happy and seeing, a sense of community that Toms River has built. I think the holiday party, in a sense, encompasses everything that Toms River Chess Club is. It accompanies the chess, it accompanies the food. That's very important at this chess club. Food is like a #1 thing. If you don't have the food, the club doesn't exist. And it also accompanies the truthfully most important thing, and that's community. This club is like a family, right? I think everyone in here knows each other. We care about each other. I had a very tragic family event a couple of weeks ago, and we all came together around that, And anytime someone's down at this club, we all come together to try to pick someone else up. And I think that's the beauty of the Toms River Chess Club. Community, resilience, that chess is just what allures us here. Chess is what brings us together. But community is what we stay for, right? And so seeing that first holiday party and seeing all the hard work after COVID, and all the hard work from the former presidents and everyone else who kept this club alive, Doyle, of course Donaldson. We had, people like Art Aiken, Renee Brown, Brian Minders, Koval, Lou Despensier, Mark Bennett. All of these people paved the pathway to me to be able to lead us to the Diamond Jubilee here, the 60th year anniversary. And I think that's the most important thing, is the people that came before, the community that everyone built here at the Toms River Chess Club.
Living a legacy with the club. I had so many experiences because of the Toms River Chess Club, and I got to do a lot of things, and I got to meet a lot of people that I would have never otherwise been able to meet and experience. It's been great.
And that's another thing, the people who help at this club, we're right now we're highlighting, some of the most important people here at this organization. I mean, Steve Doyle, in his 10 years as president, changed chess not only in Toms River, but changed chess in the United States. Pete Tamburro went on to write the American Chess Magazine. He's had so many tabloids, we can't even go count them all, and just this hour and a half presentation. His influence in chess has been massive. Steve Shoshin revitalized this club. The reason why this club exists, and the reason why I was able to take over so easily and transition was because Steve Shoshin put in all the hard work. And Eugene Salomon here, being our not only the oldest club club member, but being a life master and having such an amazing history, from the 40s on to today. It shows just how important that those people are. But we have to remember there's a team behind every single one of them too. Steve Doyle had a treasurer. He had a vice president. He had a team. Pete Tamburro is the president of the New Jersey State Chess Federation, but without people like Aaron and Alessandro and all the people that keep it going, we all have support. And the support of our eras is also what makes us. The membership here is what makes this club so prominent today. It's not just me; it's the membership. It's people like Eric behind the camera. It's people like Jim Carter, who helps me every single day when we're running the club here. It's people like Vinny, my secretary, Steve D'Agostino with the website, Chris DeSenza, who was my advisory officer, before Eric, Rob Dalton, who was my secretary before Vinny, James Pagaligian, my treasurer. All of these people are who lead us to success today, and it's going to keep the club going into the future. It's not just a one-man show. And I think that's so important too, to recognize. So thank you to everyone who's helped at the club and every single member of the club, because without you, there is no club. So I think we should deviate our attention now back to the board, just for one last time here.
For anybody who is interested, we have here with us today one of my co-authors of the first book I ever wrote, which was 40 years of friendship, 100 games of chess. I can offer it to all of you free of any charge as an interactive book, because the editor of the president of the thing and my two co-authors agree in forgetting any sale price. So all you have to do is go to www.forwardchess, enter there, and you can get free of any charge, gratis, the book interactive. So that you don't need a board or a pieces. You can do it on your iPhone or just.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Eugene.
Just to the younger people here, and for me, all of you are younger, young, keep it up. Chess is much more than a game. It's a replay of life. So much that you can learn from chess for your life in business or in whatever activity. And besides that, it keeps your mind occupied, is a mental exercise, and I'm convinced that mind is essential for good health.
Thank you so much, Eugene. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Now, Steve, I don't think you give yourself enough credit.
I don't, I guess, but
You know, you revitalized this club. You know, you brought us back from the brink of the edge. And I think, you know, the club today owes you a lot of respect and a lot of gratitude I don't think you're given. So thank you so much, Steve Shoshin, for bringing back the Tommy. And if you want to say any final words, you know, about your experiences here or anything at all, you know.
well, I would like to express appreciation to Bob Whiteside for all the work and help that he's done over the years.
The unsung hero.
An unsung hero. But I think the best thing I did was to get a hardworking, dedicated member of the club to be recruited for the next president here in Nick Carlson.
That's your job.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. I appreciate that a lot. And I'm trying to live up to that legacy here. But thank you for paving the pathway. And Steve Shoshin, former president, Tamburro Chess Club. Pete, any final words? Again, thank you so much for coming all the way from Morristown and giving us your time today and everything that you've done for not only just the Tamburro Chess Club, but for just chess in general. You've devoted so much of your life to it, and I think that deserves a lot of praise. And thank you, Pete, for Any final words from you, sir?
Yeah. For all of you in the audience, the most important words that you can say at the Toms River Chess Club to keep this club active and vibrant is, what can I do to help? All right? There are far too many spectators in chess. And anything you can do is a plus. You know, there's no way around it. You know, yeah, it's nice to, you know, it's nice to be president, it's nice to be vice president, secretary, treasurer, or whatever, tournament director, tournament organizer. But sometimes we look around and, you know, people aren't as actively involved as they could be. You know, the club is everybody saying, yeah, all of us are going to help you do this. And that's what makes people stay around in leadership positions as well. Okay, the secret to any good executive is two things. One is attention to detail, and second is giving other people things to do. Okay, not doing it yourself. Because I taught for 40 years, and I used to watch high school students with filling out their college applications. I was president of the Italian club, I was president of the chess club, I was president of that. And all it really meant was that they did all the work. Because the kids don't know how to delegate authority, and I consider that very, very important. I'm trying very hard to delegate authority in New Jersey, and people are responding. So I'm really happy about that. We have a nice group, and but for your own club, you don't have to bake a cake, but maybe you can help out with a tournament, or maybe you can do a little visit to a chess club in the area and tell them about the Tom's. There are all sorts of little things. Brainstorm, what can we do to bring more people in, and then do it yourself. And that's it. Don't rely on, like people like these two guys are generational talents, as that phrase has come up a lot recently in girls basketball in college, because they got a whole bunch of generational talents. But, there are other people on the basketball team, and those generational talents can't win it by themselves. Okay, so, what can I do to help? That's what I leave you with. That's your phrase.
Thank you, Pete. Now, Mr. Steve, I want to thank you so much for coming from Morristown as well, and all that you've done, not only just for the Toms River Chess Club, which you revitalized in the 70s, brought it to a whole new world, made it maybe, at the time, maybe the biggest chess club in the world. I also want to thank you for all of your work outside of just Toms River. Your work for the New Jersey State Chess Federation, your work for the United States Chess Federation, your work for the FIDE. I don't think anyone on earth that's living has chess administration credibilities that you do. That's something that should be honored and should be thanked for all the hard work and years, decades that you put into chess. So thank you, Steve. Now, unfortunately, Bob Donaldson isn't here, our founder of the club, but I know you knew him very well. And if you'd like to say maybe a few words just about Donaldson, our founder, it would be appreciated.
I'd be honored to do that. Bob was relocated here when Toms River Chemical opened, Ciba Geigy. So Bob was relocated from Wilmington, Delaware, brought his family here, and then started the chess club because Bob loved chess. I remember I shared a hotel room with him when I was 14 years old in Atlantic City at the team tournament. And that was my first team tournament. I guess it was the February team of '74. And I fell in love with the team tournament. And that's why team events here were a big deal. We all loved team chess was a big thing in New Jersey. Bob always loved team competitions, always was part of the Toms River team that played in the South Jersey League. Then we started the Central Jersey Chess League. And we played more, and Wayne participated in those days, Wayne Conover. We had Shrewsbury, the Shrewsbury Chess Club. We had all the way up to New Brunswick. Glenn Peterson had his East Brunswick Club. And we had a lot of team matches. There was just a ton of those. Loved to play Ventnor. Always came with a strong team, and Bob Durkin with his suitcase that he sat on with his electric clock that he had to plug in. Always an interesting character, one of the interesting characters in chess. And those people, all of those memories for me, I guess, is what I'll leave you, is getting to know people. I know people all over the world because of my involvement in chess at so many different levels, all over the country. I got to meet people that were, chess is a very broad organization. People that were tops of industry and just regular people, mostly regular people. But, you know, chess players are unique in and of themselves. You know, collectively, they're very bright, most of them. You know, and also very talented. And when you get to know them, you find out a lot of things. I helped a lot of chess players get into colleges over the years. You know, so for me, it's been helping others, and I've done that a lot. I probably write 20 letters of recommendation every year, and that's down from probably the height. Yes, a few here in this room help people get jobs. I always try and pay it forward. It's important to do that. And if you get involved, you find ways to help people, and people seek you out, and made a lot of friends. Lots of good people, including some of the people that are sitting here in this room. And that's been one of the biggest blessings. But the team camaraderie plays out. And really, the Toms River Chess Club and the U.S. team tournament every year, they're very similar. There's a sense of camaraderie and community there as well. That's really a carry forward from here. And that's why I still am involved in the team tournament. I mean, I had a big job. I had tens and tens of thousands of employees. But I managed every year to run a 3-day major tournament, one of the largest in the United States, with that and a family. You know, I mean, I was an active father. You probably saw my kids playing in the tournament. Because, you know, you have to make sure the activity fits the family's needs. So Bernadette got a job. She would sit there and do the results, which she still has to do every year, okay, at the table, and my kids would play. And then Mark, my youngest, he still helps me. You know, he's there at registration and helping organize things. And you get your family involved, and, you know, you had them play, and then they started out just coming with a grandmother. But that's all part of the atmosphere of chess. And the club is always a special place, and I want to thank all of you for continuing those traditions. On to 60 years, that's a wonderful accomplishment. Many clubs fold, no matter what it is, they fold. They just don't survive. Steve bridged this club and got it back on its feet, and we're very grateful. You know, I look at this very first edition of Atlantic Chess News here, and the cover says it all. You know, it's all about the team titles highlight New Jersey action. Well, in the 1880s, a guy named William Steinitz, who you may have heard of, lived in New Jersey. He lived in Montclair, and he was a world champion. And we actually had a world champion that lived here in New Jersey. And he was instrumental in starting what's now the New Jersey State Chess Federation. He was an active participant in that. And every weekend, on Washington's birthday weekend, they would have a chess festival in New Jersey. And we still continue that tradition today, okay? And it goes back to Steinitz. That's an incredible history. And those of you that don't participate in the team tournament, you're missing out on something, because 1,400 people can't be wrong. And we have to close registration because it gets full, and people get shut out every year, okay? So play in the team tournament. That's what the record for this club was 9 teams in Asbury Park in 1978. And it's a hell of a lot of fun. And it builds the spirit at the club. You know, and I look around, and there's still some people in this room that played in those tournaments. You know, Ed Knowles was there, I was there, you know, Pete's played, Wayne, so many of you have played over the years, had the team. And many of you play almost every year, but not every year. So make it a priority. It's been a priority for me. If I can do it with the schedule that I maintain, to even run the tournament. I mean, I would fly back from China and load my truck from a business trip and load my truck to get the chess stuff over to the hotel for the weekend. I mean, I have to take conference calls on Monday, you know, with the executives, because that was a work day in the world that I lived in. That wasn't a day off. You know, I didn't get days off, you know. But it's well worth it. Always stay involved in your life, and it will pay rewards that you don't even know what are going to happen in terms of chess. So thank you all for coming and listening. And thank you, Nick, for all that you've done for the club today and those that have done it in the past. So,
Thank you, Mr. Steve Doyle. There it is. 60 years of chess, 60 years of history here at Toms River, and we're only just beginning. You know, I think there's a bright future here at Toms River. I think, you know, before we know it, we'll be 70 years, 80 years, 90 years, 100 years. I don't know how many of us will be in the room at the 100th year anniversary, but I know there will be one. You know, there's a lot of young, young people come into the club. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of interest in chess. I think chess is timeless. I think going forward, we can hold our heads high with a beautiful history, and it is up to us to continue to write that history, to continue to write our story and see it unfold. And I'm so thankful for everyone who came before us, who came before the current club, and to write a new history and a new adventure for the Tom's River dynasty, is what I would call it. Thank you so much for everyone who was here. Thank you for everyone who attended. Steve Doyle, Pete Tamburro, Steve Shoshin, and Eugene Salomon. Thank you so much. Shout out to people who could not be here, like Bob Donaldson and Bob Green. Thank you so much. For 50 more years.